All right. Basically, I'm going to be showing the app. It isn't pretty yet, but it'll definitely get there. I'll share the URL in a moment. The general idea is once you've logged into the app, there's a few controls that you can have. You can leave feedback to say, having a good experience, and the feedback gets sent and it gets captured. Um, these other controls are information about the pages that can be ignored. Uh, typically, you can log in. You can have some settings here. I'll explain what those are a little bit later, but for the most part, you can log out and log back in here. The control to display this pane of data is here. So you press it and it goes, or it opens and closes. Here's some basic links to things. Okay, let's get started. The way the application works is when you are looking for a job, typically, and I'll clean some of this up. When you're looking for a job, you typically need a zip code. So if I don't happen to know the zip code in the city I happen to be in, I can start typing, and the system goes in and looks at all the different cities with ALH in it. In this case, I'm in Alhambra. I know that's it. I haven't built the connectivity between passing that information to this here. I just haven't done it yet. 91801. So I select it. And then essentially, I want to be able to tell the system that I'm mostly interested in any kind of jobs that are within 50 miles of me. So I'm going to hit this button, and this is actually the map. Um, and I'll show you the functionality in a moment. It doesn't have a central coordinates yet, but it will once the map refreshes. So that's something you don't see is there's no, it has no idea of where stuff is. It just has a general Google map. Okay, so I've told it in 91801, be aware of all cities and all zip codes 50 miles from you. So when I click this button to hit refresh, it has gone out and found all the different zip codes that could potentially be of interest to me. In this case, this zip code happens to be Spring Valley, 92392, 49.1 miles away from 91801. And these are clusters. So behind each one of these numbers there's a cluster of 9. The 164 is kind of a little thing that I'm doing to be able to identify where I'm at, where my Google map is at. So in this case here, I happen to be at this location where I'm doing this recording from, and it's recording that. So there's the geospatial capabilities. It has some information that are tied to each one component. If I click on it, in another part of the app, I'll tie as layers the actual jobs. But for now, I just want to keep track of where my cities are. And then here, I can see the latitude and longitude of things. If I want to see the distance details, I can, here's all the information in a table text-based. I'll use this a little bit later. So what does that mean? Is I need to figure out what my zip codes, my latitude, my longitudes are, how many miles I'm away, so that when I go to Indeed or LinkedIn, I know that this job is of interest to me because of how far I am. And in this case here, I want to refresh the page. That's being done for a reason. And if I don't have a resume that I've downloaded, I can click on this button here, and in this case, on the downloads page, let me find my resume. If I pass in my resume in a Word document, and then let me refresh the page. I haven't built the connectivity to refresh the page automatically. But if I add in both my Word document and my actual PDF resume, and again, as soon as this finishes loading, it should automatically perform a refresh, but I haven't done that yet. So in here, what I could see is I can click on this button to download, and I can see I can see the documents that have been downloaded. and I can actually see the resume that's in place. So I can push a document up or documents up. I can get the documents down. If I click on this button, and it's okay to leave, I'm basically telling it there's going to be an opportunity for us to be able to take, and that connectivity isn't built yet. Sorry, I kind of jumped the gun on that. Let me go back to set locations. There will be connectivity to be able to scrape the resume and to scrape the Word document and get different pieces of information out of it, like what skills, what general jobs I'm interested in doing, and how my resume compares to others. And in the future, in the next week or so, I'm going to introduce the component that goes off and looks at my resume, looks at a job description, and basically marries them together and produces new resumes, cover letters, and does a lot of interesting things. Okay, so that's generally the prerequisite to anything else. The second prerequisite in this system is that I may be interested in being a web developer or an architect or something, and I'll add color to these screens because I know you can't really see it, and I haven't done that yet. So if I go in and say, and I'll fix this shortly. If I go in and I want to be an Oracle Oracle Apex architect, it could just wait. Let's make it even simpler. I want to be a psychologist. I'm going to find a job in the psychology world. So psychology, and then maybe as a therapist. Okay, so I've selected this potential job title, and in this case here, I'm saying in Los Angeles, California, and the temperature is basically how rigid we want OpenAI to be. So if I say, you know what, be consistent, and again, sorry about, I didn't even realize that the page needed to be, these pages need to be altered before I built this. So when I click submit, and I've already told it, I already told it, hey, I'm looking for a job in psychology as a therapist in Los Angeles. And when OpenAI talks to me, it should be rigid in its answers. In other words, it shouldn't be random or chaos. There should be pretty consistent answers back and forth. And what I'm telling OpenAI to do is go find all the possible jobs that are similar to the job that I've entered. It takes a few minutes, a few seconds, because we are going into the world of OpenAI and grabbing data in the cloud and doing all kinds of analytics on it. It shouldn't be too much longer, probably another second or so. Then I'll show you what it returns. It's just kind of interesting. What it's going to return is a number of different jobs to potentially search for. Okay, so here's what it returned. It basically said, hey, the primary job was psychologist or therapist. These are analogous or similar other jobs I could potentially be searching for. When people open job ads, you know, they could be thinking therapist, but they might be, someone may say, you know, the job title is really marriage and family therapist. Well, both of those are very, very different. And if you specifically search for one, you won't find the other. So the system is intelligent enough that it looks at the individual job description, psychology therapist, and came up with 20 potentially different kinds of jobs that are similar. And it also looked at things like technical skills. What skills are needed by a therapist or a psychologist? Cognitive behavior therapy. You know, so basically, these specific skills is what it thinks someone who is applying for a therapist psychology should have. And then there are different frameworks in place. What are the different tools and frameworks that are part of being a therapist? So in this case here, I don't know what DSM-5 is, but I believe it's the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual for Mental Disorders. It's the guideline for how things should be identified, I guess. I'm not sure. And then if there are programming languages that are of interest, because in this profession, there's got to be some amount of data analytics And these are the kinds of tools that a therapist could potentially get really good at, and be great at, and then be able to apply their knowledge and experience in psychology to hundreds of millions of data points and be able to produce, you know, statistical relevant answers. Um, Typically, these are cloud providers that where these systems work in, and then these are the certifications that someone who's a therapist should have. There is things like the estimated job salaries for each one of the job titles that I previously returned. It went off and found the potential salary for these individual job titles. Here's companies that could potentially hire a therapist. This happens to be recruiters in the area who specifically concentrate on finding therapeutic or psychology related job professions as recruiters, a place for free training, and then potentially the number of years of experience that are tied to that. The reason why all of this is important is I'm going to be using this information on top of the information that I entered. So when I look for jobs, I'm going to take all of these different things into consideration so I can find all the potential jobs based on all the potential analogous positions that are similar. So that's how I'm using artificial intelligence. These things have data controls. So if, for example, if you found something that you didn't quite agree with, you wanted something changed, you could add comments. So for example, in this case here, I could say, SQL developer, I could say like, oh yeah, this is a tool that I use, that I remember using version 27. I don't even know if that's a thing, but let's for now, let's just assume that it is. And then let's just save it. And okay, another bug that I have. So I'll fix that shortly. Um, okay, so I'll get that in a minute. The general idea is I'm building a system that's intelligent, and I'm going to use information that it finds to help people narrow down their skills. And then if I'm looking at being able to compare salaries, for example, the federal government has statistical models that indicate all the different salaries for all the different positions um, based on census data. So in this case here, if I'm looking, for example, a psychologist, it went off to the data set that's available by the federal government, and if I'm clinical and counseling psychologist. So I selected it and I'm gonna add it in, click it again, and now I'm looking for the other ones that it also found. Psychiatrist and then psychologist, all others. So what did I find? I find information about these specific professions. In this case here, let me remove all another. Okay, psychologist. Actually, let me go back. I could have. No, that's it. Sorry, adding it back in. In the industry section, it just tells you all the different industries that a psychologist might work in: radio broadcast, specialization. Again, all of these are taxonomies. They're all based on the federal government. So I'm just going to say all, because to be honest with you, I want all salary information based on all the industries that are possible. In this case here, I have a state, so I can type in C for California. I just want California. I don't want other things for the moment. So what have I done? In the state of California, for all industries in California, for these job professions, I want to build a graph. And what I'm going to be doing is comparing from the 2022 federal government information, median average salaries. In this case here, there's some controls in place. I can see the system, for whatever reason, that was a bad example. I don't have enough data, and I got to figure out why that is. Federal government does not maintain salary averages across the board for all professions. It just happens to be that from the NAIC perspective, it didn't record these. I'll pick a different profession to show the example, but I can graph and chart based on different percentiles. I can tell you at the percentile layer what a salary profession is. Let me go back and remove a couple of these, and I'll add. We'll try with a different one. Just hang in there with me for a second. So if I said web, and I said web developer, and then I click on this button, which returns the previous set of data, add, and I say programmer, and then I say so I typed in a prompt, and then this is basically, I'll go search for it. So now it said, hey, computer programmers, and then and then let's say analyst, and let's say deep, that's good. So for these professions across all industries in the state of California, generate the data. See if it returns the data that I expect. So there's a lot more data there across all these professions. And what I can see by doing this is I can do searches, I can do filtering. So if I just wanted to see things like, what's in the information industry, INFO, I could see in the information sector what these data values are. Right? And these again are searchable filters, that allow me to look at subsets of data within this thing. So these are the total number of employees that the state of California believes are computer programmers in this specific industry, and the median average salary, those in the 90th percentile, those in the 10th percentile. There's obviously a huge discrepancy there. But if I go into down below, I could see here this graph. I've graphed all the data sets. So I know, on average, a computer programmer in California working in the national, in the newspaper, periodical, books, and directory services, on the 10th percentile level, they're paid very little, $54,380. And as I can see, in the highest percentile, they're paid a lot higher than the 90th percentile. Someone in this industry is making $131,680 per year. And obviously, there are some industries where the same skills pay better. So I could select an industry that is better paying, and I could see this position across all the different industries. And again, this just shows you the graph and charts for each individual percentile. And there's one bug that I don't have the color sorted, but I'll have that shortly. So that's essentially what the salary mapper is. The general idea is you're going to be able to get a sense as to how much historically, as of last year, this profession in this industry earns. And then the next part of this video is just going to be a quick, how do I actually search across all the different possibilities for that job. And that's what these buttons do. And I'll be able to show you in the next video things that, so if I said I want to find all users, I have the ability to search against for any query, any results I've previously asked for. It maintains a history of everything I've ever asked for. It knows what everyone's ever done. It knows what I've done today or everybody in the last day. So in this case here, if I've used the system several times, I may want to start with user. So it'll basically bring back all the results for myself that I've ever queried against. And then this is relevant because as we're looking at the map, and I can go in there and I can, if I wanted to start a new search, I could say in Los Angeles, I don't have to specify a city or state. This is just generic enough. I am looking for a AI engineer. And then I submit it in a couple seconds. It goes out and finds all the different jobs that are AI engineer based in Los Angeles. And it has actually found a number of other jobs, and it shows them on a map. So one of the things that I have to do is once this map renders, there's one more step that has to happen. In this case, this current search found 15 jobs that are AI engineers in Los Angeles. This one button action needs to be added. I'll do that shortly. But if you go into here in the mapper, because remember, I previously mapped zip codes. Now I'm actually mapping jobs because I can map jobs on top of each other. So in this case here, this is just this is just again the mapper of all the different jobs, and I can see some of these jobs are very close to each other. It must be like an industrial facility. So if I go here and say, okay, I'm looking for a full stack engineer that's potentially at this company, Datum Company, is looking for a full stack engineer between 135 and 165. And there's a summary of the job here. If I click on this button here, it'll take me to the actual job description if I want to see it. I can go to the actual website where I pull this information and I have it. So it gives you a relative view of things. So you can actually compare jobs against the other. In this case, Oracle is hiring a NetSuite account manager. And this just happens to be within my geographical region that I'm previously interested in. I can see the data down below. So in each one of these, and I'm going to add more information, I do have access to everything. So this gives me the summary, the company. I can sort by different companies if I wanted to find, Apple is hiring somebody that meets my search criteria in Culver City. So I can search by company, search by location, zip codes I have, information to map it is here, salaries. If I click on this button here, I can then make changes to information. For example, if I found that in reading through the resume, there was one skill that I really thought was important. Let's call it OLAP. It might be the case that I want to store that information on top of everything else that I've done. See, OLAP. So in other words, not only do I map things on a general map and I give you the ability to add additional information, maybe you've applied to this job and you spoke to person X and you've had 5 interviews and you want all the notes for that interview. This is a central place to be able to store a lot of common information, what jobs you've applied to, what jobs you're interested in. I'll be able to take these job descriptions and copies of your resume, and in the next week or so, I'll be able to merge them together and send you a message via your cell phone saying, hey, by the way, the system woke up and found 20 jobs that are of interest to you, and send you an email with 20 different versions of the resumes and maybe a button on an email that basically says, if you want to apply for this job, click this button and you're done. Read through the job description, look at the cover letter that we wrote for you. Here's things you might want to know about. Here's things you might want to learn before you talk to them. It's a central place to do things without having to go through thousands of emails. And that's the goal of this system, is to be able to identify stuff. In the next week, I'm going to be consuming the full description of each of these jobs that are of interest. In this case, I got 47 jobs. As I scan through each of these jobs, I'm going to pull out all the individual pieces of data. So if I said across the many jobs that the system has found, find me all jobs where the actual job description says Python. Okay, so what's relevant there is I can actually slice and dice via a specific skill set into all the jobs that have that skill set. Then I can say, well, you know what? I may have 100 different skills, but I only want to concentrate on 3. So this gives you the opportunity to go and say, you know what? I only want jobs that are using this language or this thing, this, that, or the other. And that's what we're doing. Some information is going to be mapped in a map like this. Thank God. Some information can't be, because the job description itself is void of any kind of information. Like, I can tell you where I found this job description while I began my search in Alhambra, and I can tell you what the role is, because these two are basically what I passed in at the time. There may not be anything in the actual job description to be able to pull out a location. Maybe these are remote jobs. Maybe they just didn't list the location. But that's one of the things we're going to have to deal with in the next week or 2 weeks, is what do we do with the job descriptions that that we can't pull discernible information from. So what I'm basically doing is saying, concentrate on these because I know where the locations of these are. These might actually be remote jobs. I don't know yet. We're going to find out. So I'll be scanning through them to find any references to remote or non-hybrid or that kind of thing, that kind of nomenclature. But rest assured that this system should be intelligent enough that I will be able to do things like scan through every piece of data to find anything that's valuable to you, that saves you time, that gives you more information. And at some point, maybe the system will be intelligent enough to actually apply to jobs for you. But for the moment, we have a bunch of bug fixes to do. And I know that I'm very long-winded and I apologize. Hang in there with me. There's a lot of really good value and interesting things to derive value from, and we'll get there. So we have a page in place that handles Indeed. We have a page in place that handles LinkedIn, and LinkedIn is a little bit different than Indeed because some data is available. When I talk to the web servers, when I grab data from LinkedIn, some information is available there that is not available in Indeed, and vice versa. So we'll basically, where I do not have information, I'll backfill it. Where I do have information, I'll highlight it. So there's a lot of capabilities in the background I haven't discussed. When we get to discussing them, you'll get a better understanding. But for now, let's just call it quits. I'll send you the URL. And sorry for being so long-winded, but there's a lot of really good things here. And hopefully we can build a community. The system is basically built with the following construct. It is personalized for an individual user. In other words, it feels like the system was built specifically exactly for you. But it understands the context of data protection. Your documents are saved. No one can access your documents except you. No one can see your data except you. And it's multifaceted in that it supports hundreds or thousands of simultaneous users if we ever get there. But for the most part, it has been customized so that it feels like the system only maintains your data, notes that you've made, thoughts that you've had, schedules you've made, calendars of events. So think of it this like kind of a do-all thing. And if it helps you, cool. Talk to you soon. Okay, bye.